And I'm tired just watching that.
Sunlight spills through the cafe door. Mic goes live like it's done before. 9 years deep in these mountain towns, we brew the truth, not just sit around. I came for a visit and stayed for the view, but the soul of this place, it just pulls you through. Mornings in Finlandia, nights in Salento. Life don't move fast, but man, it's full tempo. This ain't a pitch, it's real as it gets. From lost bags to love and bureaucratic regrets. No script here, just the sound of real lives told live every week under Colombian skies. It's coffee time lived from the heart of Quindío, where the screen fades out and the real stories flow from expats who landed and locals who guide. We laugh, we vent, we cry, we ride. It's not about views, it's about the vibe. Just raw conversation, live and alive. Got folks tuning in from every time zone, asking what's it like to make this place your own. It's mango trees, it's rent debates, it's finding peace past the clickbait gates. Some days we talk visas, some days we just breathe and sip dark roast while the valley grieves through mudslides, marches, markets, and mess. We show up with stories, no more, no less. It's coffee time lived, not just a name on a screen. It's 9 years of mornings and everything between. No hype, just heart and a decent brew. A place for the honest, the warm, the true. Not selling dreams, just sharing the ride from right here in Quindío live. Where the air stands still. So bring your mug, your doubts, your days. We'll light them up in soft cafe rays. It's not a podcast, it's a porch-like glow. It's home and a headline, a yes and a no. It's coffee time live. Come as you are from my table in Colombia to wherever you are.
Good morning and welcome back to the channel, Grancolombia, and welcome to another Coffee Time Live at 11 o'clock on the dot here in Armenia, Quindío, Colombia. Excuse me. Gwen, good morning from Vancouver. There's a YouTuber, The Regular Guy, and he's up from somewhere around you. And he left the Philippines. I guess he hadn't been home in years, and he's back there visiting, and he's miserable. Mr. B. Nick, how are you doing? Did I get all your questions? I was doing two things at once, so I hope I got all your questions. Let me know if I didn't, obviously. Okay, got a different kind of coffee time today. Yes, good. If you have any more, feel free. I don't know if I ever told the whole story, and I'm not going to tell a whole story today because it would take up too much time. But when I left Ecuador and moved permanently to Colombia, and not the trips I made before that, because I went back and forth 11 times, 7 times, plus 6 times, plus 5, back and forth, 11 times. Renee, how you doing? And it was an interesting trip. And I don't know if I ever told that story. And I decided I'm going to talk about it today. Excuse me. But I got a few things, as always, to address. And I've got some news topics. And one of them I'm going to talk a news topic somewhat at length because it may have impact on you. It may concern you now or in the future. So I figured I should do more than just talk about the headline. And then we'll get to my trip from Ecuador to here. Excuse me. Yeah, it never changes. But first, it says that it's 78 degrees and we're going to have a low of 60, high of 82. Yeah, probably about right. It's been pretty cool. 60 is about as low as I've ever seen it. And, I'm getting acclimated. I'm getting used to it. Before I get to the news headlines, a couple things to talk about. First of all, I want to address something that came up this week I talk about my medical situation way too much. And I have to agree with you. But I do want to explain a couple things about it. First of all, what got me starting to talk about it was that I kept getting emails asking me specifically questions about what I was going through, but even more so, they wanted to know what's it like to get an ambulance and go to the hospital. And that's when I began talking about it. I mean, it's one thing just to say, well, you didn't see me for a few weeks because I had a heart attack, but everything's fine and move on. Okay, that's cool. But sometimes it's like I almost beat a dead horse. And that had a lot to do with it because there are people that come here that are retired. There's quite a few people in Colombia that are retired that are facing similar situations. And it's not fun to think about, but you want to prepare yourself. And so that's part of what I try to do. Another part is, if I'm missing time or whatever, to, kind of explain it. And I do get people email me quite a bit, and maybe they don't say something here, but I respond to that on air. So that's where a lot of that comes from. And then the third thing is, particularly the last 6 months, when I've been cooped up for as long as I have, what else can I talk about? It's kind of my life. I could talk about AI, but that's not really appropriate for Colombia Coffee Time Live, right? And so, it's what I've been living. It's what I've been going through. But that's, probably no excuse. I should restrain myself, but that's where it all came from. Excuse me. The throat never ends. Like I said, I did get more emails this week than I have in quite a while. Quite a few questions, some comments, few suggestions. It was great. I love that. B. Nick, thank you for taking the time to describe your experience with the medical system in Colombia and Armenia. Yeah, I mean, there's a fine line. Here's the thing. I spent my life being healthy. It wasn't until I was 60 years old when I got cancer and I went through a couple years of hell. But prior to that, I had a very fortunate life, very healthy, very fit, very active. I played tennis and rode bicycle and until I blew my knee out. I skied and I used to run 6 miles a day. I couldn't after I blew my knee out, but I was a very active, fit, healthy person my entire life. And then there was a huge change after the cancer, being bedridden, and I got fat and I took this medicine that affects your metabolism and I have to for the rest of my life, supposedly. Although there may be an alternative right now. We're looking at that. But it's been my life for a while now. And so I get too much into it, I think, because I'm too close to it. And I have to remember that in my years before I ran into these health issues, it used to really annoy the piss out of me when you have these old codgers waddling around, hooked up to their oxygen tank, and the only thing they could talk about was their health. And I'm going, God, I've become that guy. So I'll try to temper it a little bit. Rigo, good morning. How you doing? Fully participating after watching for years. Thank you. I appreciate it. Rigo, hell of a nice guy. I very much appreciate that he's living in Colombia now. They don't get to see him very much, but that should change. By the way, now this is information. This isn't me talking medical, but I have my EPS insurance, but I also have a personal doctor. I've had her for a number of years now. And she came by 2 days ago and she's checking me out and all this stuff and talking about a new medication. Came from the US. It just arrived here in Colombia. And she thinks it's perfectly suited for me and it may get me back on my feet and back out of this apartment. And it's like, hell, I'll do anything. But here's the point. In 2023, her home visit was 50,000 pesos. Now, at the exchange rate at that time, that amounted to $15. And at that time, the exchange rate was really good. And I couldn't pay her the 50,000. I always paid her more. I felt guilty because she would come on her own transportation and spend 2 hours, looking after me and leave for 50,000. I mean, house cleaners make that much. Okay, so that was 2023. In 2025, last year, her home visit was 100,000. And at the exchange rate at that time amounted to $25. That's still freaking awesome, right? And the very fact that they come to your house is something. Now, her prices this year is 150,000. And at the current exchange rate, that amounts to about $42. So if you look, going back a couple years, it was $15. It is now $42. So a combination of the exchange rate and inflation. And it's one hell of a bargain. Of course, when you're on a fixed income, I'm actually paying considerably more than I did in the past. So that's not fun, but I share that with you so you get some idea. So at the price at what it is, I would never have the right to complain. Of course, I'll whine about it anyway, but she's awesome. And if you ever need a doctor here locally, I highly recommend her. We already started the new meds and it's just been a few days, but to be honest with you, I already feel an improvement. So I'm really excited that it's very possible I might be able to get out and about within about 2 weeks. And once I do, I may never come back here. After COVID, after being locked up for 6 months, I left that apartment. I actually had to pay extra because I left early on the contract because I never wanted to set foot back in the place. It was a great place. I would just, Okay, so let's get to the head. Olga, how are you doing? Good morning. Good morning. Okay, let's get to some news headlines. First one, this was a late arrival. It just came across, I think somebody sent it to me. Some of you may know this. It's in the north. It's right on Bolivar, and it's right around Portel Quindío Mall. More my way, right across from the Chevy dealership. And it's a club called Corona. And during the day, it's kind of like what you see. It's pretty chill, but they have music at night. So they have nightlife. And there's others. There's the one UFO club. It's directly across from the mall. It's a disco. There's Corona and 4 others all in that area that the city wants to shut them down because of noise. Now, Rigo actually lives near, I don't know if he hears those particular clubs, but he's pretty close, about a block away from the UFO club, but it faces the other way. So I don't know if he hears it. That's part of the action popular that we filed against I've never talked about, because it's all in limbo, but Rigo's going to have one hell of a story when these things start to come to conclusion, because he owns an apartment right in that area. And he's been stirring the pot for a year maybe. It will be an interesting story when the time comes. But I don't go to these clubs. I mean, I know all of them. I've never set foot in any of them because it's just not, my way of life. I'd rather go to a cafe, but and I don't go out at night like that, or rarely. If there's an event, generally, if there's an event, if it's at night or maybe a restaurant or something, I'll go out till maybe 10. I don't know if I've ever been out past that. Maybe that's why I never have crime issues. Rigo, we have a class action suit against the city and the state police and all the administration. Now, that's gone through the old administration and the current one, I believe. I think it started with the old administration. But I would imagine it's kind of like meet the old boss, same as a new boss kind of thing. Okay. Another headline thing here. I didn't even mention the exchange rate. When I checked this morning, I forget what time it was 3,600 on the nose. There's a train project, the project of Train del Cafe. I was watching a soccer game at Corona once, and it was fun. Yeah, I've heard it's a pretty cool place, actually. This train is supposed to be a transportation. They used to have railways here, and they're trying to put it back together. And there was a proposal. What you're seeing is going to the west of Armenia, and there's a proposal to bring it over into Armenia also. And the main road kind of goes that way. If you go from Cali to Medellin, you bypass Armenia. You'll go through Cartago and Pareda, but you'll bypass. So they want to bring the train through. And the initial study, or whatever, the bureaucrats do, it's been approved to look at that. But there's another project. I don't think it'll ever get off the ground. I don't think it'll be in our lifetimes, unless maybe you're 5 years old. But I love the idea. It's this right here. This is proposed. Cable cars running all over Quindío. Every village, basically, Finlandia, Salento, Circassia, Quimbaya, Montenegro, Armenia, Calarcat, La Tabaida, Cordoba, Buenavista, Pijao, and Ova. That's all of them. That's all there is. And that would be awesome. I can't imagine how long that's going to take and how expensive it would be. But can you imagine how? I don't know if there's any place in the world that would have a network like that. It is really a cool idea. Okay, what else we got? Oh, this headline kind of sucks. They're jeopardizing the autonomy of Quindío. What's going on is Finlandia, a little town that was on that little cable car thing there. Look at the very top, Finlandia. That borders to Pareda. The mayor of Finlandia, on his own, is trying to push through the administration not be Quindío, but rather, and not even be Risaralda, which is the department of Pareda, but he wants to be attached directly to Pareda. Now, he claims that the reason is Pareda draws water, because we have great water in Quindío, and Pareda draws water from Finlandia, but they do it for free. But if you were attached to Pareda, if Finlandia was attached to them, they could charge for it. Well, one, that doesn't really make a lot of sense to me. I don't know if that's even true, but there's a lot of people really pissed off. And the worst part is he's already jumped through the initial hurdles to make that legally possible. So it seems ridiculous. Then you have people saying, well, if that happens, then maybe Salento will do the same thing. But what's Quindío without? And I don't know. I hate the idea, but we shall see. Okay. Because I am not the shill for the Chamber of Commerce, there's something going on called Plan Awakening. Now, I have talked for months and months about crime, and we'll have spikes in it, and then they throw 100 new policemen at it, and they kind of get it back in control somewhat. The North is mostly insulated from it, although there's a couple areas where it's not. But there's a new plan Awakening. It's, what's it say here? Strategic offensive against crime at critical times. It's another task force. What's happened this year is, particularly in the south of Armenia, there is a crime spree occurring. There are more murders this year in south of Armenia that have probably taken place in the last 2 years. Now, I'm guessing, but I look at these things all the time, and there's usually hardly anything like that, even in the south of Armenia. But it's kind of exploded, and there's a real issue with local gangs, motorcycle robberies, and all kinds of stuff that's going on. And most of them are related to retaliations or paid hits. Like a woman gets beat up by her husband, she can't do anything about it. And there's laws to protect her, except nobody enforces the laws. So maybe she hires somebody to off her husband. That stuff never used to really take place, at least not around here. But we're seeing it. And so they're trying to, politically, it's killing them, because people are, if read social media recently, people are pissed. They're really angry. And this is one of the responses. Rigo, again, it's all due to the corruption that's so prevalent here in Quindío. Quindío is the smallest state in Colombia, yet has #1 in corruption. There is definitely a corruption problem here. We were pretty clean up until about 22 or 23. And it started to change. And it started very small and barely noticeable. and now it's really blossomed. So it doesn't bode well. Now it's still north of Armenia. We remain kind of isolated, and there's specific reasons a lot of this stuff is happening and why it wouldn't really affect us, except things creep and you never know. So of course there's concern, but there's so much spotlighting taking place right now that maybe it'll get it back in check. Several establishments in Armenia are closed for violating regulations and disrupting public order. This is another push. This is the broken windows aspect. Giuliani back in the day. They're implementing those things. So a lot of things that they have turned a blind eye to, street carts that aren't permitted and things like that, they have been cracking down. And here they're going to businesses and they're checking to make sure that they're legally licensed. You have to be a licensed business to operate. To make sure that the bureaucracy is in place the way it's supposed to be. And if there's any kind of violations in general, they don't have OSHA, but there are some basic safety violations, things like that. And they closed down, I think it was 5 places. Now, they're going through and looking at hundreds of them. So by percentage, that's not bad. But it's what, and you see in the picture there, you see the firemen along with the fire chief, along with the police. So they're looking for fire violations also. Okay. Now this one is what I'm going to talk at some depth on. Hold on just a minute here. To find my notes. Okay. Where is it? This is about buying real estate and essentially a scam that's taking place. Before I get to Rego, I totally agree that back it was a beautiful place, but unfortunately, the Godfather who runs Quindío has an ironclad hold on everything. Sad, he decides who will run the city, who gets business license, etc. Yeah, you have to wonder if those crackdowns have anything to do with that too. You don't know, but I don't know. We'll see what happens. I'm optimistic. I have faith, but you never know. Okay, so these apartments, you see to the right, those are finished buildings. To the left, those are unfinished buildings. And this is, I see it as a scam, but it's a scam that legally it's a difficult thing. So here's how it works. You find a new building going up in Armenia. Hold on. Sorry. Button's not working. Anyway, let's say it's a nice project and maybe you call it Parque Residencial del Cafe. Not to name names or anything. And maybe it's over by the Coliseum off of 19 to the west of it, which is kind of borderline North Armenia or not. And let's say they're building this and you look at the plans and you say it's awesome, you love the price, and so you buy it off of the plans. The price is fair and the developer seems legit. There's a city housing agency and they stand behind it. You pay in full. Now that's kind of typical with most of these apartments are bought from people out of Bogota, primarily with retirement in mind, but not entirely. Some people, they pay with cash, so they have no mortgage. It's their whole life savings. One retired Army captain put his retirement money in. A lawyer in her 30s put everything she had in there. So let's say the building gets finished, you get the keys and you move in. I mean, so far, so good. And now you wait for your escritura, with the deed, the title deed. That's what they call it here. That's the document that says you actually own the apartment, right? That your name goes on the property registry, that you can sell it or pass it on to your children. I mean, without that deed, you don't own anything. You're just occupying. You're not owning. Well, let's say the deed never shows up. So you ask the builder, hey, what's going on? Where's my deed? And the builder says, well, there's a problem. He says the minimum wage went up 23% this year, and there's a clause in your contract that says the price escalates with that. So now you owe him another 35 million pesos per apartment. There's 40 apartments he sold in that project. That's a lot of money. So you pull out your contract and you take a look. And it turns out the contract never specified a date for the deed. There's no deadline. So, of course, the lawyers are going to tell you a promise of sale contract without a delivery date is at best legally weak. Some lawyers will tell you it's actually void. But void contracts don't get you your money back, at least very quickly. You'll end up 5 years in court unsure of the outcome. So you ask for the fiduciary, the trust company that was supposed to be holding the money and protecting the buyers. They don't intervene. So you talk to the city office, and they don't own the housing agency that promoted the project. Now, the city manager admits on camera that, yeah, the builder failed to set the date for the deed. That's the admission, but nothing happens. You ask the builder directly and he accuses you of committing a crime because you rented the apartment out to somebody else. Then he retracts it a minute later. You show him a document with his signature showing the project is financially closed, and he says the signature is fake, put together on the internet. His previous construction company, Calcamar, already has 6 complaints at the superintendent of industrial and commercial superintendent. It's a pattern. Now multiply this times 11 construction companies in Armenia, all doing the same thing. When the authorities step in to try to unwind a failing company while protecting creditors, there's a process for it. Currently, there's claimed between 10,000 and 12,000 families in some version of this mess. And of course, the excuse about the minimum wage went up 23%, this actually all began in 2023. There were only 500 cases in 2023. And then in 2024, it jumped to about 3,000 cases. Then this year, it's just gone through the roof. It's gone crazy. Not everybody got their keys or even got to live in them. Some paid and got nothing for it. Got places that never even got completed because they go out of business and go open up under a different name. And the government protection, it really hasn't been there. There's a consumer protection law, 1480, I think. Plus, there's a civil code on it. But Colombian law isn't protecting the buyers in this case. And enforcement is slow at best. And the burden of proof sits entirely on the buyer. The deed system was supposed to solve that, but it didn't. So what I just told you is a story that's been in the news. And it's a disaster. I mean, this is working people, retirees, they buy their home in good faith, and a regulatory system that was supposed to protect them, and builders who are supposed to be good and have a track record are just cashing out. And they found a legal gap in the contracts that everybody signed. The housing situation right now, I don't know this for a fact, and I tried to find proof of it. My suspicion is that when you have all around the same time 11 construction companies go out of business, leaving people in this situation to the point where it makes national news, retirees from Bogota, which is the biggest market, are going to think twice about continuing to, maybe Armenia is not the best deal. Maybe we'll look somewhere else. And so sales fall through the floor, not to mention families here in Armenia. Do I dare trust that contractor? I mean, we thought those were good. And so sales have just fallen off. Things are getting cheaper and cheaper and cheaper. And it's even affecting rent this year. Rent prices, not at the highest end, but the middle range of rents. I was looking, and there's some places that are just up all the time. And I saw one that was 3.3 million forever, but it's down to 2.7 now. Probably it'll drop down more. It's been sitting empty for far too long. So I salute you for finally exposing. Well, this, I didn't know about I talk about it when I see it. This is a thing that just took place. I haven't seen it because it hasn't been reported on. So how would I know? I'm not in that situation. I get my information not just from those headlines. What happens is people that I know here, Colombians, will say, hey, have you seen whatever? Or I'll get expats that'll mention something. And I'm always watching throughout the week, maybe every other day, I'm scanning headlines. Based on that, I pick the most obvious things that might be of interest. Up until recently, you almost never saw murder headlines. It was really rare. And the ones that you would see is domestic issues, fights that got out of hand and one stabbed the other or something like that. Well, what's that really have to do with coffee time? That stuff happens everywhere in the world. That doesn't indicate a trend. That just means, bad stuff happens. And it doesn't belong on the channel. But when all of a sudden, if you look at Quindío News website right now, on the first couple pages, you'll see about 20 articles for murders. I've never seen that before. So it's hard for me to talk about that kind of stuff. I'm also, I need to temper it a little bit because I'm talking to people, some that have been here, some haven't been here. And if you talk about things like this only, if I were to focus on that, it misrepresents. For example, me and the people that I know for the most part are completely unaffected by all of that kind of stuff. It's not the world that we're living in. I don't live in the south of Armenia, for example, but it is getting bad. One of my favorite places in the south, a friend of mine actually came by to just say hello the other day. She had to move out of that neighborhood because it's gotten so bad. And it was in the south, but it was a great area. As a matter of fact, it was an area that Mike used to live in. Anyway. Well, yeah, that's true. There's some buildings and contractors I wouldn't go to any of their products. That's true. That's always been, but they're kind of evident because if you're coming from the United States and you're going to buy yourself an apartment, a condo, those that you're talking about, and I agree with you, but you go into them and you can see it because they're using the cheapest crap. They're extra small. The layouts don't make a lot of sense. You'd walk away from it, and they're really catering to people that are coming from places where that looks like an upgrade. All right, talked a lot about that. Let's get on a different topic here. Okay. I worked for one of the largest contractors in Silicon Valley who built. Okay. I'm going to, well, where's that one? Get that off the screen. Yeah, that was one of those places, that picture that was up. Now I'm going to talk about part of my trip in 2017 when I moved here from Ecuador. This was the bus that I picked up in Ipiales, right across the border. I didn't fly in. I took a bus. Well, I was coming from Ecuador, so it made sense. So I get in that bus and everything's cool. The police come on and they check people's ID, which is a good thing. You want that to happen. And it was pretty uneventful. Now, this was back when I didn't have my passport legal. So when they came on to check, I pretended I was asleep and they were looking for some sort of criminal, and they didn't bother waking me because I'm a gringo, so I'm not involved in anything they're looking for anyway. I assume. So anyway, yeah, I lost my passport, but I'm not going to tell. I've told that story. I'm not going to tell that story. But then I get to the Pasto terminal, and it's almost like a step back in Ecuador. I mean, people are eating cuys off the street. So Pasto has a very nice terminal. And so we pulled into that terminal and we sat there for about an hour. And so I had nothing to do, and I'm just kind of leaning back in my seat and I'm looking out the window, and I see this family of 5 hugging and kissing and standing outside the bus, and they're looking right behind me. So I turn around and there's a couple people there and they're waving back to them. Okay, well, that's pretty normal. So the bus pulls out. We go down the drive. It's a long drive, and there's a gas station. It's the equivalent of about 2 blocks away. So we pull up to the gas station. We stop there for a bit. That entire way, that family ran alongside the bus waving. I mean, this was a distance, but the whole family running alongside the bus waving. So stop at the gas station. I don't remember why they were stopping at the gas station, but the driver said something to the effect, my Spanish really sucked back then, but it was something to the effect of it was going to be 5 or 10 minutes, something like that. So the people behind me got off the bus, went out to the family, and they just started giving people hugs. Like, you ever see the monkeys that just kind of cling on to each other? And they weren't monkeys, but it was like they just arrived instead of leaving. I mean, there are tears and they were crying. And as the bus was getting ready to leave, I am assuming One was a mother and one was a grown adult male son, I think. He had to pull her away to get her on the bus. And in that moment, I'm remembering it triggered a memory. When I came to Colombia 20 plus years ago, I don't even know. I mean, I've been saying 20 years for 10 years. But way back then, one of the things that struck me was how close families are. How I would go to a family's house and I would see they'd sit on the couch, they'd sit next to each other and hold each other's hands, and walking down the street holding each other's hands. And I mean, I'd never seen it before. I never saw the kind of affection, particularly within a family. And when I saw that, I mean, it just struck me because I'm coming out of Ecuador, living there for 3 years. I never saw anything like that in Ecuador. And I'm thinking to myself, this is one of the reasons I like Colombia. I'm not like that. I'd freak out. I'm one of those, I got my space and it's about 5 foot diameter. But you love to see it. You can't help but love to see it. You can't help but see it and wish the whole world was like that. Sadly, Colombia is losing that. It's changing rapidly. But that was a real moment for me. So we get the bus going, take the trip, and now we're going to El Bordo, headed towards Popayan. El Bordo is a place where the buses will typically stop. And remember, I've made that trip a whole bunch of times, but this was my last one. And in El Bordo, they pull off the side of the road, which is difficult because it's really crowded. There's no room, but they manage. And we go into this little roadside restaurant. And I'd been in Ecuador where you think the meat is bad here. At least you can find good meat here. In Ecuador, it's almost impossible. There's a few restaurants that have, they import in special, but it's not like you just can't go buy it, find it. It was, at the time, it was really difficult. But I get off into that roadside restaurant and I sit down, and it was Colombian beef, which you would think, well, then it sucked. Well, no, Colombian beef commercially in the stores and what you typically find will suck. But that area is a whole bunch of cattle ranches. And Colombia also has some really good beef. It's just hard to get your hands on. But they were in the middle. El Bordo is in the middle of one of the large ranching areas. And northeast of Bogota is huge, that entire area. But El Bordo, they had that. So we get off, we go into this little restaurant, and I decide to get some beef. It came with a soup and, I don't know, a whole bunch of rice and beans and a cucumber salad. But it had this charcoal beef that was, oh my God, I was in heaven. It was so delicious. It was so tender. And the charcoal, I mean, there's nothing better than charcoal for beef. It was amazing. Of course, it cost me 8,000 pesos at the time. Now, at that exchange rate, I had to figure it out. It was about $2.70 with the juice. And that was another reminder. I'm moving to Colombia and I'm thinking, am I making a mistake? I had a pretty nice life in Ecuador. I just had a health issue there because of the altitude. But I saw things that were coming in Ecuador and I didn't want to be there. And they're all happening. It took a little longer than I thought. But everything that you see, how Ecuador is blown up, that's what I saw coming. Talked about it in some videos. I didn't see a future there. So I'm coming to Colombia and I'm thinking, am I making the right choice? But I see that family, and then I stop and I taste that charcoal beef, and it just reminded me of those days years ago, But then comes, I don't know if it was bad or good. I get back on the bus. I kind of doze off. It's a long trip. I doze off. And the bus ultimately is going to go to Bogota. And then there's Armenia. Well, I wake up just as we're going to the sign. It says Armenia this way and Calarca and Bogota this way. We went past Armenia this way. And so I go up to the bus driver and he tells me to sit down. I said, well, there's my stop. And my Spanish was almost non-existent then. And the bus driver, he was miserable and grumpy, but I was persistent and I wouldn't leave. And so he finally figured out what I was trying to say. And so he said, well, sit here at the seat right next to him. And he keeps going. He's going up the hill out of Calarca towards Bogota. It was bumper to bumper traffic of trucks and buses. This was, like I say, it was about 2:00 in the morning. And I'm thinking, what's he going to do? You got to let me off. And he's no, he can't. We get to a place where there's a little jutty where he could pull the bus over. He stops there. He gets off the bus, goes across to the other side, and he just stands there. A bus comes along, same brand, Boliviano, and he waves it down. He waves the bus down. He calls me over. So I go over, lugging my suitcases and stuff. And I remember he came over to help me cross the road. And I had 2 suitcases, a guitar, I don't know, a bunch of stuff. So he puts me on the bus. I don't really know what's happening, but the traffic is so bad, it's taken forever. I'm tired. It's probably about 3 a.m. by now. We're coming down the hill. One thing I remember is there was like a army of guys out there with broomsticks beating on the tires, supposedly for air pressure, but beating on the tires and going up with their hand out to get a tip. And there were dozens of them, and they're making their income off these trucks and buses, and truck drivers and buses were being very nice and giving them whatever coins they had. So we get back down to Calarca. The bus isn't going to Armenia, so he drops me off right there in Calarca. So I got the bags. It was definitely a handful. Couldn't move very fast, dragging everything along. And I get to where there's a bunch of people. Now this, like I said, it's 3:00 in the morning. These were, you would think they were probably unsavory. At the very least, they were just poor. But it had really bad vibes. Like, they're sizing you up, and, I didn't know what's going on at 3:00 in the morning. And I didn't know Calarca very well. I'd only been there once, I think, in the past, and not in this area. This was this was one of the unsavory areas. So it wasn't just that they're poor, but it was 3:00 in the morning and everybody was acting really suspicious. There was probably 20, 30 people around in this little area. So I'm trying to get a taxi. There's no taxis coming by. Finally, this beat up old Renault, it was a Renault, comes up. It's painted yellow. So, taxi. This thing had to have been 50 years old and had run off a couple cliffs. I mean, it was in bad shape. It had almost no brakes. It burned oil. I mean, I've never seen a taxi. Taxis here are pretty nice generally. This thing, I don't even know if it was a legal taxi, but it's 3 a.m. What am I going to do? So I get in, I'm showing him on my phone where I'm trying to go. 20 minutes. We kept going back and forth on the phone. He's looking on his phone as though Google's going to be different or something. Finally, he says he knows. So we get to a traffic circle to leave Calarca. thing stalls. He's cranking it over. He goes out, gets under the hood, fiddles around a while, comes back in. We got it from where we started to where I was going. It was the equivalent of about 2 miles. We got there at 4 o'clock or 4:30 in the morning. But here's the part that's kind of memorable. He wakes him up at 4 a.m. He called. I had the number, so it's where I was going to be staying. So he's got the number, and he calls them. He only asked for their address. It wakes him up 4 o'clock in the morning. The only thing he has to say is, where do you live? Well, they hung up on him. And when he tried to call back, they wouldn't answer. To make it worse, first of all, that was really stupid. He should have just said, hey, I got a guy that's going to be staying with something. But he didn't. He only asked for the address. Except that at the same time, there was a scam going around about people calling for your address and then later getting robbed. And so it was in the news about, if anybody calls and asks for your address, don't give it. Pure coincidence, but that's what happened. So we finally get there. It's like almost 4:30, going on 5 o'clock. I don't remember exactly. It wasn't long before the sun came up. And finally got to close to where the place was. So I get out, I walk the rest of the way. I forget what he charged me. It wasn't very much. I didn't know. I had nothing. I had no context. He didn't use a meter. I don't think it was a legitimate taxi, to be honest with you. But I go ring the doorbell. They came down. They let me in. They became very good friends to this day. Wonderful people. But it was a hell of a trip. So that was my moving to Colombia trip. Greetings from South Carolina. Thanks for all you do. Thank you. Stephen, do I know you? I don't know if I know you. Let me look and see if... Perdón. Perdóname. Okay. There was so much more that happened on that trip. From there, I went to Manizales, and if you haven't ever seen what was it, Life on the Run, I think the series was called. It was 2 or 3 videos that went through coming across the border illegally, no passport, road checks, different things that I went through. Then I had to go to Manizales, went to Bogota, got a new passport. But then I had to go back across the border to Ecuador, which meant I had to sneak over to begin with. And then I had to sneak back out so that I can get an exit stamp from Ecuador and get an entry stamp into Colombia. So those 2 weeks, I was illegal. And I was worried because Colombia, like most countries, they don't mess around. If you're not here legally, there's just a couple things that they'll do. They'll either take you and put you in jail. They will take you and have you dropped off at the border, or they will drop you off at the border and put your name in a thing where you can't re-enter the country for X number of years. And when you do, you have to pay a big fine, like a few $1,000s. So wasn't looking for that at all. That wasn't on my agenda. All right. Well, that's my story. I hopefully, if you were considering getting an apartment like that, you won't do it. This is how if you want to get an apartment, what you want to do is get one that somebody actually owns, not one that's being built or just got built, never had an owner. You get one from an owner, and the transaction is very similar to what it would be in the U.S. You've got you have to you do a search to make sure there's no back taxes. You go to a notary, you get your documentation. So it's very much you don't really have to worry about that. But buying a place before it's built or a place that's never been purchased before in a new building, it may sound attractive because it's all brand new. Don't do it. I don't know what else to say about it. Just don't do it. All right. Any questions before we go? Thank you, people that are here. Thank you for the comments. Rigo, thanks for showing up. That was awesome. Glad you showed up. When you get back, if there's any kind of resolution, maybe we'll start telling that story. For me, this is a great place to live, but it's not immune from what people go through in the rest of the world. And I've always said, I love the coffee region, but so much of Colombia I don't care for one reason or another. But that's personal preference. I love being here. If I wasn't here, I'd be in Manizales. If Manizales and here didn't exist, I might not be in Colombia. And I'm not saying that there's things wrong with it. It's just I've traveled so much of Colombia and nothing really felt the same way as what this area feels like to me. It's probably, where are we here? Stephen, great having lunch with you and Judy. Oh, you know each other. Looking forward to your return. I don't know if I know Stephen. I didn't know he was leaving. Check on who the builder was. You'll save money on repairs that you'll have to go. Oh, he's talking to them. That's fine. All right. Well, I think that's it. If last call for any kind of questions or comments. I'm dying laughing right now, Sebasti. I don't know when that comment was. I just saw that one. Came in on another channel. Oh, you're welcome. Loren, by the way, the male version. All right. So I will see you next Sunday. If you have any questions or comments, feel free to email me. I really enjoyed getting as many emails as I did this past week. It was very helpful. I think it put my head in a better space, which is kind of nice. Or maybe it's the medication and feeling better and getting some energy and not falling over. I've been walking around and I haven't fallen over the last couple of days. So, maybe that's it. I don't know. But they're certainly good to get. They're very helpful. All right. So we're going to end it here. I will see you next week. Ciao.
Wow.